All right. The Passion according to G.H. I was eating myself, I who am also living matter of the Sabbath. Could that have been, though much more than that, the temptation of the saints, and from which he who would or would not be a saint emerges sanctified or does not? From that temptation in the desert, I, laywoman, the unsaint, would succumb or emerge from it for the first time as a living being. Listen, there's something called human sainthood, and which is not that of the saints. I'm afraid that not even the God understands that human sainthood is more dangerous than divine sainthood, that the sainthood of the laity is more painful. Yet Christ himself knew that if they had done what they did to him, they would do much more to us, since he said, "For if they do these things in a green tree, what shall be done in the dry?" Trial. Now, I understand what a trial is. Trial, it means that life is trying me. But trial means that I too am trying. And trying can become an ever more insatiable thirst. Wait for me. I'm going to pull you out of the hell into which I descended. Listen, listen. Since from the delight without reprieve, a sob was already born, being inside me that seemed more like a sob of joy. It wasn't a sob of pain. I had never heard it before. It was that of my life splitting in order to procreate me. And those desert sands, I was starting to be of the daintiest of a first shy offering, like that of a flower. What was that offering? What could I offer of myself? I who was being the desert. I who had asked and had. I was offering the sob. I was finally crying inside my hell. I used and sweat the very wings of blackness, and was using them and sweating them for me. Which art thou, thou flash of silence? I am not thou, but me art thou. Only for that I shall never be able to feel thee directly, because thou art me. Oh God, I was starting to understand with enormous surprise that my hellish orgy was human torment itself. How could I have guessed if I didn't know that one laughs in suffering, because I didn't know that that was how one suffered, so I had called joy my deepest suffering. And in the sob that God came to me, that God was occupying all of me now. I was offering my hell to God. The first sob had made of my terrible pleasure and of my feast a new pain that now was as light and helpless as the flower of my own desert. The tears that were flowing now were like those for a love, the God who can never be understood by me except as I understood him, breaking me like a flower that at birth can barely hold itself up and seems to break. But now that I knew that my joy had been suffering, I was wondering if I was fleeing toward a God because I couldn't stand my humanity, because I needed someone who wasn't pretty like me, someone who was so much wider than I in order to allow my misfortune without even using pity and solace, someone who was, and not like me, an accuser of nature, not like me, a person astonished by the power of my own hates and loves. Right this second now, a doubt surprises me. God, or whatever thou art called, I only ask for help now, or for thou to help me now, not darkly as thou art me, but clearly this time and in plain sight. Since I need to know exactly this, am I feeling what I am feeling, or am I feeling what I would like to feel, or am I feeling what I might need to feel? Because I no longer even want the concretization of an ideal. What I want to be is just a seed. Even if afterwards from that seed ideals are born again, either the real ones, which are the birth of a path, or the false ones, which are the accretions. Could I be feeling what I would like to feel, since a millimeter's difference is enormous, and that millimeter of space can save me through truth, or once again make me lose everything I saw? It's dangerous. Men praise highly what they feel, which is as dangerous as detesting what one feels. I had offered my hell to the God, and my cruelty, my love, my cruelty had suddenly stopped. And suddenly that same desert was the still vague sketch of what was called paradise. The moisture of a paradise, not another thing but that same desert. And I was surprised as one is surprised by a light that comes out of the nothing. Was I understanding that what I had experienced, that nucleus of hellish rapacity, was that what is called love? But neutral love? Neutral love. The neutral was whispering. I was reaching what I had sought all my life, whatever is the most final identity, and that I had called inexpressive. That was what had always been in my eyes in the snapshot, an inexpressive joy, a pleasure that does not know that it is pleasure. A pleasure too delicate for my coarse humanity that had always been made of coarse concepts. I made such an effort to speak to myself of a hell that has no words. Now how shall I speak of a love that only has whatever one feels, and before which the word love is a dusty object? The hell I had gone through, how can I explain it to you, had been the hell that comes from love. People put the ideal of sin in sex, but how innocent and childish that sin is. The real hell is that of love. Love is the experience of a danger of greater sin. It is the experience of the mud and the degradation and the worst joy. Sex is the fright of a child, but how shall I speak for myself about the love that I now knew? It's almost impossible because in the neutral of love is a continual joy like a noise of leaves in the wind. And I fit into the neutral nakedness of the woman on the wall, the same neutral, the one that had consumed me in pernicious and eager joy. It was in that same neutral that I now was hearing another kind of continual joy of love. Whatever God is was more in the neutral noise of the leaves in the wind than in my old human prayer, unless I could make the real prayer in which to others and myself would resemble the Kabbalah of a black magic, a neutral murmur. That murmur without any human meaning would be my identity touching the identity of things. I know that in relation to the human, that neutral prayer would be a monstrosity. In the relation to whatever is God, it would be being. I had been forced into the desert to find out with horror that the desert is alive, to find out that a roach is life. I had drawn back until I found out that in me the deepest life is before the human. And for that I had the diabolic courage to get rid of feelings. I had to give no human value to life in order to understand the breath, much more than the human breath, of the God. Had I asked for the most dangerous and forbidden thing, risking my soul, would I have boldly demanded to see God? And now it was as if I were before him and didn't understand. I was standing uselessly before him, and I was once again before the nothing. To me, as to everyone, everything had been given, but I wanted more. I wanted to know about that everything, and I had sold my soul in order to find out, but now I was understanding that I had not sold it to the devil, but much more dangerously to God, who had let me see, since he knew that I would not know how to see whatever I saw. The explanation of an enigma is the repetition of the enigma. What art thou? And the answer is, thou art. What do thou what do thou existest? And the answer is, what thou existest. I had the ability to ask the question, but not to hear the answer. No, I had not even known how to ask the question, yet the answer had imposed itself upon me since I was born. Because of this continual answer, I, the wrong way around, had been forced to seek the corresponding question. So I had got lost in a labyrinth of questions and asked questions at random, hoping that one of them would occasionally correspond to the answer and that I could then understand the answer. But I was like a person who, having been born blind and not having any more around who could see, not having anyone around who could see, that person could not even form a question about vision. She wouldn't know that seeing existed. But since vision actually did exist, even if that person didn't know about it and had never even heard of it, that person would be motionless, restless, alert, not knowing how to ask about something she didn't know existed. She would feel the lack of something that should have been hers.